Hey there, you're listening to College Conversations, a podcast where two college guys talk about anything that comes to their minds. I'm Jake.
And I'm Chase. Thanks for tuning in and enjoy the episode. Hello. Welcome back. We have a special / not so special guest today.
Hey.
My sister is joining us
All the way
Hi,
from Broken Arrow.
guys.
all the way back from my hometown. I should state that this is over Teams. She did not bother to make the trip here to actually record podcast
I
in
was
person.
going to. I was in fact going to, and then I did
Lame.
not.
Yeah, I'm sure
You're
you
lame.
were going to.
So, this will be the first time recording over a virtual meeting. So, we'll see how this goes. Hopefully, it goes well.
It'll go perfectly. Nothing will go wrong.
I think so.
I guarantee it.
Perfect.
Yep.
Best episode of the podcast yet.
We'll see. So, how we feeling? Is there anything interesting going on?
Oh, the ego on this lady here is insane. I can just say that.
What makes you say that?
Traits.
You guys haven't heard all the behind the scenes of what we've been saying, but it's been off the charts. I
This-
thought Chase was bad, but it must run in the family, you know?
Who do you think I learned it from?
I don't know.
Not me. We did
I
a. We
really
did
don't
a.
think it was from our parents either, though.
I don't know. We did a test recording 2 nights ago. It ended up being like 2 hours long. We started it off just like testing out some things, testing out the whole meeting over Teams, and then recording and testing out all of our gizmos and gadgets to figure out how this was going to work.
One of which just named Potato, by the way.
I have a software called Voicemeeter Potato, yes, that I'm using. It's a great software.
What is your favorite form of potato?
Like all
that's a good
forms of
question.
potatoes, I'm gonna have to go with boiled potato. That's my favorite.
Boiled
You
potato?
liar.
Boiled potato.
Just straight up. Why even
don't
go
skin
there?
it. Don't skin
Just-
it.
Just
Just-
stop at raw, unskinned potato. Just
No, no,
take
no,
a
no, no,
chunk
no,
out of
no.
it like an apple.
No. See,
Why-
that's where you're
okay.
wrong there, Chase.
So it's unskinned,
Yes.
but it is boiled.
It's boiled, so you can like take it in one hand and just like mash it down into your mouth. And
So it's
In
self-mashed,
what scenario are you
unskinned
going
potatoes.
to be doing that?
Thanksgiving.
Are you telling me you guys haven't had boiled potatoes before?
I don't think I
Baked
have actually.
Potatoes? Mashed potatoes?
I'm just messing with you. That's like the worst one that I can think of. There's nothing good about just
Besides
straight boiled
raw
potatoes.
potato.
Well, raw
Do
potatoes
people
are interesting.
actually eat that?
Well, it's interesting because you can eat it like an apple, so it's like kind of funny to think of eating a potato as an apple. But I don't know. I think I've
There's
tried it
people who
once.
eat onions like that.
Shrek.
Oh, Shrek.
My favorite
Does
kind
he
of
actually
potato
eat-
is probably fries. I mean, I don't know.
Like McDonald's fries or like potato fries?
No, not potato wedges.
We're
Like
getting into a
crispy
larger
fries, like
debate
fried grease
about
fries.
Like regular fries. Like what do you think of when you think of fries?
So yeah. Just
Not
just
McDonald's fries. No.
Well,
Their
that's like
fries
the
suck.
that's the
This is
vibe that
this
I'm
is a
thinking.
whole-
Like whenever
this
you
is a
think
whole
of
nother
a
debate,
fried
all right?
fry, that's the first one I think of.
There's so many different kinds of fries, and that's a whole topic on its own. Let's not get into that. We don't.
New podcast idea.
Yeah.
Just
New
talk
idea.
about potato.
You hate small talk.
No, because we're going to get into like an hour-long conversation about what kind of fries are best. Because there's a lot of opinions. I know I have opinions about that, but we don't need to get into that because that's going to be a long and argumentative conversation, I imagine. A lot of arguing is going to happen.
Personally, I like tater tots and hash browns because they're crispy.
When you said number one, that's 2. Which one is it? Tater tots or hash browns?
I'm thinking again, like McDonald's, like they have those, like the hash browns that are
So
pretty
those
much
are-
just really wide tater tots.
They're actually that's a really good way of it. It's just a giant smashed tater tot.
It is. I mean,
It's-
whenever like you think of hash browns originally, like it's like the little shredded pieces of potatoes. But like if
Yeah.
you think of a hash brown you get from a store, like a restaurant, it's typically like just a patty of tater tot.
I think that's what I always thought of them as, is just hash brown patties.
Yeah. So that's my favorite kind. It's like the same thing, just different sizes. So I like it because it's crunchy.
So, what is your number one favorite potato if it's not boiled, unskinned potatoes?
I don't know.
That's
I'd
nasty.
probably I just said that for controversy is all that I said that for. I'd probably have to go with like curly fries or something, something like that.
Okay. That's a solid option.
Yeah.
I forgot about tater tots, but I don't know if I could rank those above fries. No, I definitely can.
You
Yeah,
can?
I'm changing my answer
You're
to
going to
tater tots. Yeah.
You're stealing my answer. I see.
No, you went with hash brown patties,
Yeah.
which I think you're
typically,
weird
like,
for because I've never had one of those that I really liked.
I feel like in general, like the majority of the time, if you get a hash brown patty, it's going to be crunchy. But sometimes if you get tater tots, they're kind of soggy and kind of sad. But whenever they're not soggy and sad, they're the best thing you've ever tasted.
Well, just don't go anywhere that serves sad, soggy tater tots.
The only place I really get tater tots is Sonic.
Perfect. They do their tots well.
Sometimes they're sad and soggy.
Uh-huh. Tots for the win.
Yeah, sometimes we're all sad and soggy, aren't we?
I think so. I think so.
We all have our moments.
My new life motto is
This is a sad, soggy moment
Whoa.
right now.
sad and soggy. I think that should be the podcast motto.
Why?
Sad and soggy.
Sad and soggy? That sounds depressing. Why would that be the podcast motto?
The podcast, I don't know.
Hey, what's up, guys? Hope you've had a sad and soggy day. Anyways, we're talking about
Stay sad and
aliens today.
soggy.
You know?
Peace out. Like, no.
For anything bad that happens, that's the bad motto. And then there's like a good one. I don't know.
What's the opposite of sad and soggy? Happy and crispy.
Happy and crispy, yeah. in potato terms, anyways.
Like when people did the whole like easy peasy lemon squeezy, and then they changed it to be like stressy, depressy, lemon zesty.
I forgot about that. Anyways, today's actual topic, thanks to our homemade psychology expert here.
Homemade.
Homegrown.
Expert
I'll have
in
no-
heavy quotation marks due to her
have
having
no-
taken one AP psychology class.
I got a 5 on the AP psychology exam, so I have a couple things in my little brain of knowledge.
Aren't you
And by
glad
that
you
I mean
did
I just
that?
have really good short-term memory, and I did a lot of practice tests like the week before, and pretty much just memorized all the answers.
And AP tests are determined by how well everyone does, which means they probably all did really bad, which means
Wait, really?
Is that how AP works?
you didn't know that?
I never took AP.
Yeah, so AP tests are determined, the scoring, like the range of the scores, what it takes to get certain scores, are dependent on how everyone does. That's why AP Calculus, BC, has one of the lowest, like,
Score ranges?
percentiles needed to get a certain score.
Because it's the hardest one, or one of the hardest.
That's
one of the hardest. I think
stupid.
Physics C is the absolute lowest.
Yeah.
Shouldn't it just be like you get this number of questions right and you get this score?
Hey,
If that were true, nobody would pass the AP exams.
just another one
Maybe
of the
they
flaws
should
with AP.
just do like a AP reformation and fix it because it's all screwed up anyway.
We need the AP Renaissance to happen.
Exactly.
Off with their heads. Well,
Is that
you
the
have fun.
Renaissance?
You have fun going off and changing the world for all high school students alike. I'm sure they'd love that.
Just do
Me with
concurrent.
my one AP class taken ever.
Yep.
No, today we're going to be talking about psychology and certain conditions and or experiments that make up the human mind and sometimes not the human mind.
And Marissa's mind. Include all of it in there.
Just
And Marissa's
interesting,
mind.
Yep.
interesting factorials.
And about how weird Marissa's mind is.
Why is that so
Specifically
important
me.
to you?
Specifically my mind.
Because that's like half of what we're going to talk about.
But I'm not the only person in the world with it.
Well, yes. But you're the first person that we heard of this crazy thing from.
Okay.
And it kind of spawned the whole topic that we're talking about today.
The first thing we're going to talk about is a condition known as aphantasia. For those of you who don't know, aphantasia is... Actually, I'm going to let Marissa take this one because she can probably describe it better than I can.
So I've actually always called it aphantasia just because I don't know how to pronounce it, but it very well could possibly be aphantasia. So basically, it's the, I guess, condition of not being able to see pictures in your mind. So a lot of people call it like your mind's eye is just not there.
And
Like,
this is
at all.
specifically in regard to pictures, correct?
Yeah. Like pictures in my head, like whenever somebody will ask you to like, oh, picture this or imagine this, like normal people will see the picture in their head and like be able to visualize it. And for me, there's nothing.
I think normally the test that people use with this condition is like the apple test. It's like how
Yeah.
well can you see the apple in your head, and it's a range from like 0 to 5, with 0 being you can't see anything, 1 being you see just the outline of the apple, and then 5 being you see the apple in perfect color and whatnot.
Yeah.
And detail and
Yeah.
texture and all that
detailed
stuff.
textures.
Yeah.
As if you were actually looking at a real apple.
Yeah.
And
There's
you
some people
don't have any of that, huh?
Yeah, I got the unlucky end of the spectrum, and I just don't really see anything at all. Some people, if you ask them to picture an apple, might be able to see like a red blob, but like not really actually an apple.
Is that
Then some
you,
people
or
like
is it
highly detailed, like perfect, like with the stem and like with the leaf and all the like colors and details and stuff like that, which I'm jealous of.
No, I can think of an apple. I think I've described it this way before. I can see kind of like an oil painting where it's like, it's not crisp, like photorealism, but it's like,
it's not a honey
it's
crisp.
more conceptual art.
Yeah.
It's just kind of like an oil painting where most of the details are there.
The form
but
and the colors and
The form, the
it's all there,
color,
but not photoreal detail.
right. No,
Yeah.
I don't have a perfect image of an apple in my head. What about you, Jake?
I'd say I'm pretty close to all the way there, if not all
Like
the
a
way there.
4.5.
Really?
Yeah, something like that. Like when I first heard about this aphantasia thing, I was like shocked that it was a thing because I
Flabbergasted.
well, you have your own perception of things, but like you don't ever think that it's any different, or you don't even realize that it could be different for
Yes.
other people. So for me,
Yeah.
I can picture any memory, I guess, that I have of anything in my mind's eye. And I can take it and like rotate it in 3 dimensions, which some people can't do, and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah, that was going to be another question I had is can you rotate it?
Yeah, I can rotate the apple and see all sides of it as if you're just like taking it and doing this sort of stuff to it,
I can't even see it, so no.
Yeah.
I can rotate it. I just don't have full 100% control over the rotation.
Here's a question that I came up with. Think about like, and sorry, Marissa, you're not going to be able to participate in this, but think of like a
okay.
cube, like a 6-sided cube. All the sides are white except one side is like red or something. Can you keep track of where the red side is and rotate it so that the side is hidden, and keep track of which side it's actually on, so that
Yeah.
as it comes in and out of you, you still remember which side of it is red and everything.
Yeah, I can do that. The only interesting thing that I just discovered in doing so was that it no longer becomes red because I thought of it in like a black space. So actually, when it wasn't directly facing me, it became like a brown.
Wait,
It's
hold
weird.
on. Let's go back
What?
through that. So
You said it was a white cube.
we started with red and white. That's what
and
I
a
said.
red side on a white
Yeah,
cube.
yeah. And you changed it to black background and brown cube?
Well,
Or
it's still a white
White
cube with a
cube.
red side. I just automatically, because the cube is white, I put it in a black space.
okay. And then you that changed it to brown?
For whatever reason, when I rotate it, the information in my head storing the value red on that side of the cube.
The hue slider
Gets-
went down a bunch, so it's brown now.
I guess the
Like it like
importance of
shadowed?
it, kind of.
Like there was shadow on it, like color theory, it turned to brown.
Like my brain thought, okay, because we're rotating it, I only have so much processing, and color is no longer as important as it was. So I guess, yeah, it lost track of the fact that it was red along the way. Anyways, that was
Chase
just.
has
so
just
weird.
unlocked a new level of aphantasia just now.
Well, I mean, I feel like that's kind of in the middle of it. I'm still like,
Like
a
3.5
3,
is-
But you
three, and
just
that I
added- you,
can't
like-
really visualize things perfectly. But it's like it's got weird quirks to it when I do.
Yeah, you're just quirky. You just got some quirkiness in there.
Yeah.
You're so quirky.
And what's interesting about this is Jake and I are in band, as we've stated before, but Marissa, you're in choir, but aphantasia doesn't really work with sound the same way that it does for images. I mean, it does to an extent, if I remember what you said before.
Yeah.
You mind
yeah.
explaining that?
I mean, honestly, it could be two different things that are just like both messed up in my brain. Because there was one person I talked to, one lady, and I was discussing the whole aphantasia thing with her. And she said that she was very much like an audio learner. Like she learned everything really well. Like she would always listen to audiobooks. Like she listened to her textbooks. Like she was very much like remembered something if it was audio based. And I've never really been that way. I mean, like I'm not a visual person that much, obviously, because I can't like visualize that in my head.
Right.
But I wouldn't say that I'm really like an audio learner either, because a lot of the time, like if I'm listening to something, I also have to be reading it. So it might not even be something that's specifically from aphantasia, but whenever like I listen to music, if I have a song stuck in my head, typically you would hear like the background instruments and the beat and the actual vocalist singing or whatever, like each individual piece of the song, and you would have that in your head. But for me, it's like I don't have the background instrumentals, I don't have the drums, I don't have any of that stuff, and I don't even have the actual like artist's voice singing it. It's like I wouldn't really say that it's my voice, but it is just kind of like a voice, like some pitches in my head singing the song instead of like the whole audio track.
This blew my mind when I first heard about this. This is insane to me.
Does this
It's
mean
insane to me that you can hear the whole thing.
Does this mean that you have internal monologue?
Not really. Not that much.
See, it's confusing to me because you can hear a voice singing these songs, but you can't hear a voice saying things.
I wouldn't really say that I can hear, like, for me, internal dialogue, like, Mom talks about how she has internal dialogue all the time, and she talks about it as if somebody else was talking to her and she's just hearing that in her head. For me, the only things I hear in my head are like my conscious thoughts. Like I'm actually thinking about it, and like it isn't as if someone else was saying that. Like I'm actively thinking about it. That's how it is for the music too. Like it's not as if somebody else was singing it to me. It's like I'm actively like singing the pitches in my head.
So it's a mental extension of your voice, essentially, not a
Kind of,
mental
yeah.
creation.
I want to
Yeah.
take a sidestep real quick to talk about the mind's like hearing things in your head thing. So when I think of internal dialogue or whatever you called it, I don't think of it, for me at least, I don't think of it as someone else talking to me. I just think of it as myself saying the things that I'm like reading out loud, but in my head.
Or like a clone of yourself
Yeah,
sitting
like
next
it's
to you.
like my voice essentially.
It's like the little guy on your shoulder.
Yeah. And so like when I read things, I hear myself saying it in my head, and that's how I read it. I don't know if that's common or not common or whatever. That's how I experience it. And that's what I always thought people were talking about when they say like inner dialogue or whatever you called it.
And I think
You-
for the most part, that is generally
That
what
is
people,
what it is.
I mean, that's what I think of
Well,
when I think of internal
not
dialogue.
really, actually.
Well, then your mom, like the thing that your mom
I
said
think-
was like
yeah.
someone else is talking to her. And it's
Yeah,
like,
mom says that she has
it's-
like entire like debates, like multiple, not like voices in her head. That's kind of like, you know, like normal internal dialogue voices, I guess, for her. Just like debating, like discussing, giving advice sort of thing. Whereas it sounds like, Jake, you have like something similar to me where it's like really only my conscious like thoughts. It's not as
Yeah.
if somebody else was like talking to me, but for some people it is, which is what I think my mom at least sees as her internal dialogue, is like other people dialoguing to her instead of just
So-
us monologuing.
yeah. So which one is it? Is it dialogue or monologue? Is that the
Dialogue.
difference? Is that the difference between these two? Is me and Marissa have
I guess so.
monologue and your mom and others have dialogue?
I guess that's a good point.
Is that the difference?
I suppose that would be the difference if you're distinguishing between the two.
Yeah.
Chase, what do you have?
You a monologue or a dialogue guy?
I honestly, I have both. It's whatever the situation calls for. I mean, if you were to ask me to read a passage in Morgan Freeman's voice, in my head, I would be able to read the passage using
Oh, I
Morgan
can
Freeman's
do that
voice.
too.
So that's where I'm like,
I
it's
can't.
it's not particularly internal monologue. I do have internal monologue where it is like a clone of me is talking to myself, or like, if you want to think of it as like a like, I forget what it's called, but like an out of body experience where you're just kind of third person viewing your entire life, something like that. So I have a monologue, but I can also do a internal dialogue with other people.
I don't think that's what we're defining dialogue as. The dialogue is someone else is in your head talking
So
to
it's
you.
just permanently somebody else's voice.
Yeah, it's
Yeah.
like
Like,
detached
I
from
think
your
if
own
you're-
thoughts.
Like with your Morgan Freeman thing, like you're consciously thinking about it and choosing to speak like that in your head. I think the dialogue thing is if like you're not actively even thinking about it. Like it's as if somebody was talking to you
It just
instead of like
happens.
your consciousness.
It's the voices. The voices are speaking to
The
you.
voices are
voices.
speaking.
They're back.
Which I saw this post a long time ago where this girl was like freaking out because she's like, you know, like I think I'm like schizophrenic or something. She's like, there's voices in my head. Like, and they were all like trying to figure out like what she was going through, like trying to get more information on it. And by the end of it, they're like, that's just your thoughts, girl. Like, you're just thinking. That's called thinking. And I just thought it was funny because like not everybody has that.
Well, I guess it's interesting though, is like, what's the difference between internal dialogue, like we're defining, and schizophrenia? Like, what's the difference in these voices?
My guess is there is none.
Well, and that's what I'm wondering is schizophrenia just these voices, except for the voices are quote unquote evil, or
And there's
they
more
have
of them.
bad
Harmful.
intentions. Yeah, and it's like
They're harmful.
they're
Yeah.
it's like a mob of voices, I guess.
I don't know.
I don't know.
And then there's also the question of what happens to people who have bipolar disorder. It's like, what happened? Is it monologue for them? And then is it monologue for both quote unquote personalities?
I don't think that's what bipolar means.
Bipolar or multiple personality disorder?
I think Chase is
'Cause
talking about
it's two
multiple
separate things.
personalities. Yeah.
Either. I
Because
mean,
bipolar is more just like manic and depressive episodes.
Yeah.
But multiple personality is what a lot of people think of as bipolar, where like you actually have like different personalities, different personas in your head.
what does Moon Knight have? Is it? I guess it would be
That's
multiple.
multiple personalities.
So I guess
Bipolar is like mood swings.
right. But I mean,
Very,
even
very
then, it's
intense
like,
mood swings.
Yeah. Yeah.
I'd still wonder, like, what does that mean for these people? I don't know.
I don't know. It's hard to like even imagine that, seeing as I don't really even have like my own personal internal dialogue. I can't even imagine what it would be like to have like different personalities internal dialogue.
It almost reminds me of the whole conversation of like living in different dimensions. Like it's possible for somebody that lives in 3 dimensions to imagine living in 2 and 1 dimension. But if you're living in like the lower dimension, you're not able to, you know what I mean? It's like
Yeah.
if
Like
you
think higher.
have
We can
internal
theorize about it,
monologue
you know?
and you are able to see things in your mind, you could conceptualize to an extent not being able to, but if you've never been able to
Yeah.
experience it, there's no possible way you could conceptualize
Yeah,
it.
exactly. And that's why it's honestly kind of funny, because I feel like every single time I try to explain this to somebody, they're like, "Oh, like I feel so bad for you. Like that must be so sad." And I'm like, I've literally never known anything different, so there's not anything to be sad about.
It is
Like
sad for the
there's
person being sad about
yeah,
it.
yeah,
Like,
well, exactly. And I mean, there's some people like me who are like born with this. Like I've never been able to see pictures in my head, but I'm pretty sure there's some people who like through like emotional trauma or like actual physical trauma like lost their ability to see things. And I feel like in that case, yes, it would be sad. But for me, I've never known any difference, so it's not like I don't feel bad about it, because I mean, would I like to be able to see things? Absolutely. But I'm not like crying over the loss of being able to see something or being able to have something that I've never had.
Yeah. Speaking of that, let's get back to the music part of this, because this is what spawned the whole conversation about this. And is this the one that has multiple levels also of hearing this stuff? Or
I think it just because of the nature of how it works, it does have multiple levels.
so the way that I'll just go with how I experience it, and why it was so crazy for me to hear that you experience it completely differently than me. But
Yeah.
like when I hear music, and of course it's because I'm a big music person, and probably because I developed it a little bit in my band experience, you know. But when I think of music, it's basically like hitting play in my head. I hear like pretty much all of the details. I hear the instruments. I hear all of the individual parts of it, and you know, depending on how familiar I am with the song, of course. But it's all memory based, and so if I have strong memories of listening to the song and hearing the individual parts of it, I can recreate them and play them back and hear the specific timbres of all of the stuff. And timbre is a term I'm going to throw around a lot in this part. In case you don't know what timbre means, timbre refers to the specific sound quality of an instrument, of a sound. Timbre is the difference between knowing what different instruments sound like. So if you were to play the same exact note on 2 different instruments, like say piano and violin, right? You play the same pitch, the same frequency on both, you can still tell that they're different because of the way they actually sound. That is timbre. That's what we're going to refer to as timbre, because that's the definition of it. But I'm going to throw that around a lot because Marissa experiences timbre completely differently than me, and I just want to talk about that. So let's see if I can get this right, okay? And then feel free to bash me as I get this wrong. But
All right. I will.
the way that I understand that you experience timbre is that you hear it all in the moment, the same as anyone else, But as soon as you
Like if it's
try
actually
to,
playing?
yes. So if it's actually
Yeah.
playing, you still hear all the timbre. It's still there. It's not a hearing disorder, I guess. But when it comes time to replay that in your head, all of the timbre information is lost, but you still have the musical information, i.e., the pitches and the rhythm and that kind of stuff.
Yeah, that's exactly it. Like if you play a note on a piano and a note on a violin, I can perfectly tell you like that one's piano, that one's violin. But if I try to recreate it, just the pitch. Like I will not be able to differentiate like in my head which one is which. Like
So here's a question I want to
actually
throw at
playing.
you. So just to kind of demonstrate how this works, if like let's take a different instrument, like say a string bass, right? You have a string bass, right? You pluck a note on the string bass, whatever, and you listen to it and you stop. And then I come and ask you, "Hey Marissa, can you remember what that sounds like?" Immediately after hearing it, can you recreate what what just happened in your mind exactly as it just happened? Could you do that,
I could do the pitch.
but not the sound of the bass itself?
Yeah. I might like imagine in like quotations, imagine it to be like a little bit um like more, I don't even know, like resonant,
Rounder,
but
yeah.
yeah, but I'm not actually going to hear the difference. Like if you told me to do that and I imagined it and then you played something on like a flute, I'm not actually going to like hear the difference, but I can imagine like the flute to be lighter and the bass to be rounder.
Yeah, that's the craziest part to me is that you
Yeah.
hear the timbre, but then it immediately is gone and you cannot pull it back out of your memory into your mind's
Yeah.
ear. That's the craziest part to me.
I never knew that people like actually could do that. So I was just like here like chilling being like with just my pitches, like singing songs like just the pitches. I was talking about it with my best friend who's the person that I've like discussed most of this like brain stuff with because she is like very highly sensitive to stuff like that. So like she pictures everything very vividly. She hears songs and remembers all of the like backing track and everything very vividly. And I was discussing it with her and she's like, "Wait, so like whenever you hear the song, like you don't hear the backing track, you don't hear each individual like instrument." I was like, "No, you do?" Which it was just so crazy to me because I'm like, the fact that people actually can do that and I've never known that, it's unfair. Unfair.
Yeah, that is just crazy. And just even thinking about like that exercise about the bass note or whatever, I can like imagine what it would sound like without even hearing it at all. Like I can imagine playing a bass note on a bass, just like plucking it out and then recreating it. I can recreate that whole scenario in my head about hearing it and then recreating it and doing all of that. And just hearing the sounds of the instruments, because I've heard them enough, I can pull a memory of what a bass sounds like and hear it all and think of the scenario. And I imagine none of that happens for you.
Yeah. No. I mean, it's like everything outside of my own head is perfectly normal. But whenever I
Yeah.
tried to recreate it, like if you played like say 3 different instruments or even 4 different instruments, just depending on how well my memory is working that day, like if you played them all and then like randomized them and played them all again in a different order, like I would probably be able to tell you like this one is that one, this one's that one, but like if you asked me to actually recreate those in my head, it wouldn't work. So like the input is fine and then it rattles around doing absolutely nothing in my brain and then the output again is fine.
There's just nothing going on in there, you know?
Your
No,
mind
yeah,
is a
no thoughts,
black
head
box.
empty,
Yeah.
literally.
And so, like, this might be redundant, but like, what happens when you think of a song in your head and it's like when you think of some song that you know and you're replaying it in your head, what is actually happening there? What's all of the stuff that's happening?
Alternate question, really quickly. Whenever you think, like, whenever you're hearing a song in your head, how similar to actually physically hearing it is it? Like, are you just thinking about it, or are you actually like hearing? I mean, I know obviously like you're not physically hearing it, but like,
Yeah. So it depends on how well I know the song, the degree, or I guess like the volume in quotes of to which I hear it inside my head. But if it's a song I know really well and I really like, that's the other thing. If I enjoy it a lot, I'm gonna remember all the details of it. But like I can think of like a bunch of Snarky Puppy tunes that I really love a lot, and it's like hearing it at like 25% volume. But if you were to like play the actual song in real space, but just at like 25% volume, that's kind of how I hear it. Like I can get it to the point where I do feel like I actually am hearing it just at a quieter level with all of the same details of all of the timbres and all of the instrumentation and everything. And Snarky Puppy, for those of you who don't know, is there's a lot of timbres in there. There's a lot of stuff going on at any one time. And because I love it so much, I remember all of those details and can play it back.
I think a lot of it depends on how well you're able to visualize things in general, because I can remember what sounds sound like about as well as I can visualize the apple. So I can remember the different timbres and whatnot, and if you were to ask me to play something from a song in my head, focusing in on each instrument, I could probably remember, but hearing it as if you were pressing play is not quite, I wouldn't quite be able to perfectly recreate it in my head.
It's like you take the oil from the oil painting and you smear it on the speakers so that they're not quite performing it exactly.
You
right.
smear it on
Yeah.
the record, so there's
that's
scratches.
actually
Yeah.
so
whatnot.
interesting. For me, it's like no background instrument, like no drums. Like if there's a really cool like drum part, or like a really cool instrumental part in a song when the actual like artist isn't singing, like if there's like a little drum solo or like a little like saxophone solo in Careless Whisper, like I can
That's a good example. Yeah.
like I'll have that, like the pitches of that in my head, but it's literally like how, as if I would be singing it just with no words. Like I'll be sitting there going "Bree, bree, 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 bree," like in my head.
But you won't hear the saxophone. You'll hear vocals essentially.
Yeah. Pretty like literally just like that. Like that's why Chase probably hates this, but like I go around the house all the time like just making weird little like I guess vocal stems, but it's just like the beats or the instruments behind a song but in vocal form because that's how I hear it in my head.
That actually makes a lot of sense as to a lot of things that I've heard. I
Like,
mean,
yeah, all of the weird,
sometimes
like,
I think
little-
you're just being stupid, but that actually does make
I
sense
mean-
as to why you're making.
You're just reflecting
said
what's inside
sounds.
outside into the real
Yeah.
world.
Yeah.
It's like Jake beatboxing, but it's all you can do.
Yeah. Okay, here's a
Yeah,
little
and-
side thing. I'm really curious. Like you mentioned drums, all right? Drums don't necessarily have pitches to them exactly when you're thinking of it. So when you're thinking of drums, can you in your mind separate like the kick and the snare and the hi-hat into different sounds in your head? Like do you hear each of those?
Or is it just feelings? Like
Yeah.
the kick is big and beefy, and the hi hat is like high and
I would say
wishy
it's
washy.
more the feelings. They like kind of have a pitch. And so I'd probably be thinking of like the vague pitch. But like if I'm thinking of like the cymbal or anything, like it's not going to be a pitch. It's going to be just like a ch sound.
Yeah.
So it's
But if
literally
I'm
going to be her
like-
beatboxing in her
She's
mind.
beatboxing in
Yeah.
her head.
Like the whole like ch thing, like
Yeah.
how people do that for jokes. That's pretty much what drums sound like in my head.
That's awful. Oh my god.
I told Jake I was going to pick a song and entirely recreate it with my voice just to see like what it is that you hear just like an entire song of just my voice poorly recreating the instruments and sound effects from the song.
Yeah, but you would have to play them each, like, you can't layer them on top of each other. Like, you can't put all the instruments on top of each other. You would have to do an entire recording through of just the drums.
That's even worse.
And then start over. And an entire record, like, I can't, like, hear multiple layers
Wait,
at the same
okay,
time. Like,
hold
if I'm,
on. So you said you can't hear multiple layers, right?
yeah.
I would think of it, and of course, this is just me trying to imagine what it'd be like for you, so it's going to be wrong. I guarantee it. But
Okay.
I would think, especially since you're such a good choral singer, you understand like choir stuff. I would think of it as
Choir stuff.
hearing choir stuff. I don't know. I would think of it as you hearing like harmony, the same way that you hear, like you understand and hear the harmony as you're singing in a choir, like the individual layers of a track, like drums and bass and guitar and vocals or whatever. Would that not be just like essentially harmony, since it's all your voice in a way in your head?
Can you even hear harmony in your head?
Do you hear harmony in your head, I guess? Like, can you hear multiple?
I hear one pitch at a time.
Wow.
Only one pitch at a time?
So like a major
Yeah.
chord, not at all in your head, even with your voice, quote unquote voice.
No, not at one time. I can go like do 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 do, but like those are all like separate time like not at
So
the same time.
You can't hear harmony, you only hear individual notes. Like you can arpeggiate the notes, but not them at the same time ringing together.
Yeah. Yeah. That's why like sometimes
That's
at
crazy.
church, like Chase will be like, just find the harmony. And I'm like, I don't know.
That actually
what
makes
that is,
a
'cause-
lot of sense
Yeah.
because when I'm finding harmony, sometimes I will literally be hearing a one pitch and playing others in my head, trying
Yeah.
to find
Yeah,
one that
no.
sounds correct.
You can't.
Wow.
That's
Oh.
what, like, I'll hear the melody and I hear the melody. And if I hear someone
my
else
gosh.
sing the harmony, like all of the church songs that I know the harmony to are the ones that I've heard other people singing, and I will recreate that harmony. But I can't hear both the harmony and the melody at the same time in my head.
Interesting.
You have to work so much harder than all the other choir kids to do the same thing.
You
I
should
mean,
get
kind of,
bonus
yeah.
points for that.
Bonus points.
I feel like I should. I really feel like I should. And especially because sometimes, like, the choir teacher will be like, okay, this is your pitch. And you have to sing, like, that pitch. And then you have 3 or 4 more pitches before it's, like, another one. And he's like, this is your starting pitch. And then that's the other one. And they're 2 separate pitches. And by the time that I get to the other one that he played, like, I don't know what it is because I can't hear them both in my head at the same time. Like, if he plays the starting pitch, I'm going to be thinking about the starting pitch and not the one that happens later.
I'm going to have you take an interval test later to see if you can hear intervals.
One of the things for anyone listening to the podcast, I'm taking a class called Oral Skills right now.
Oral
Skills, yeah. Oral
Oral
Skills.
Skills.
AURAL.
Yeah,
Oh,
whatever.
my friend took that class.
Yeah, and part of that class is interval training, where the teacher plays an interval, whatever it is. It could be a perfect fifth, it could be a minor third, it could be a major 7, whatever. And you have to, just from hearing it, know the sound of the interval itself. And I, like Chase said, I'm really curious as to how you would think about that and how you would perform at a test like that, essentially.
Do they play the 2 notes of the interval at the same time, like a chord, or do they play it like an interval at
depends.
2 separate times?
It goes boom, beam. So it'll play them one after the other, and they don't overlap.
Yeah.
I think if I knew intervals better, I could probably figure it out.
Yeah. What about
Like-
if
like-
they only played at the same time?
No.
You couldn't figure it out?
That would be harder than
I mean,
one
like,
after the other.
I feel like that'd be more difficult. Like, because I feel like I would have a harder time, like, picking out what each of the notes were. I mean, maybe not. I've never tried it, but I feel like if you played the 2 notes at the same time, like, I would have to first figure out what the notes were and differentiate them in my head before I could attempt to figure out what the interval was.
And that's kind of like how you're supposed to do it. in a way, is hear both the notes. But I also am familiar with the sounds of the two notes together and the interval itself. So that also helps me to understand it. So I don't know. It's just strange. I'm curious how you would think about
Yeah.
that.
I don't know.
Another thing I want to talk about is Pavlov and his dogs.
Pavlov.
That's such a fun name to say, Pavlov.
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 It's
I
not
don't
the
know
most
what,
fun,
like-
but hey, it's kind of fun.
So what about Pavlov
It's like
and his dogs?
German or something. I don't know.
Pavlov's
I think he's Russian.
dogs is the experiment where he conditioned, correct me if I'm wrong, he conditioned a bunch of dogs to a bell that every time he rang it, they would come for food. And originally how this started is he was, I think, researching behaviors based on a scenario or whatever, if something was happening. So when he arranged food for the dogs, he would ring the bell, signaling that food was ready. And over time, he could ring the bell and they would come regardless of whether or not there was food, because they had learned that whenever the bell rang, there was food.
Yeah. That's like the basic like gist of the story.
But there's
The
also
experiment.
B.F. Skinner, who did a similar experiment but with cats. And the difference was his
The cats didn't
experiment.
listen to anything and messed up everything and knocked all the vials off the counter. And
Well, that may be, which is why he put them in cages
He put them in
instead of
cages, yeah.
just letting them roam free. But his experiment was, if I'm saying this correctly, was based on reward and punishment. So B.F. Skinner was researching, and I don't know if they're male, female. I don't actually know their first name. What is B? Do you know?
Both Pavlov and Skinner are guys.
Okay.
They're very old, and women weren't a thing
Yeah.
before then, so
Male
they just didn't
research.
exist.
Okay. But
Pavlov's
Skinner.
name is Ivan.
Ivan? Oh, Ivan
Yeah.
Pavlov.
He's
Oh, I didn't
Russian.
even. Yeah, I guess I didn't even realize that Pavlov wasn't his first name. I mean, it makes sense, but Anyways, Skinner was trapped cats in a cage, and I didn't do super thorough research, so I don't know the exact specifics of his experiment, but he essentially tested behaviors based on a reward, which was, I assume, a treat, or punishment, which was some kind of poking or prodding.
There's like, I think it's like 4 different. I'm like trying my best. Shout out to my AP psychology teacher for teaching me stuff, and I'm attempting to remember 2 years later. But basically, what I remember is there's like reward and then there's punishment. So they have 4 different types. So for reward, there's like negative reward and positive reward. I'm pretty sure that's not what it's called. There's like a specific name for it, but I can't remember that right now. So it's like reward and then punishment. And so it's like there's the giving of something good and then the taking away of something good. So giving something good is whenever they do it correctly, and then taking away of something good is whenever they don't do it correctly. But then there's the opposite version where it's like punishment. So there's the negative punishment, which is whenever they do it bad, they get negative punishment. But then there's also positive punishment, which is whenever they do it good, they stop having the punishment. So there's like 4 different like variations of reinforcement.
isn't that operant conditioning?
Yeah, that's exactly what it is. B.F. Skinner studied operant conditioning, and then
Pavlov
Mr. Dude,
classic conditioning.
Ivan. Yeah.
So, which one works better?
that's kind of like the huge debate. Like what
Personal opinions?
personal opinions. I mean, honestly, I really feel like it depends on the situation and what you're trying. Like, if you're talking about humans, like, I feel like it depends on what you're trying to get them to do. Because, like, for kids, a lot of the time, like, say you're wanting these kids to, I don't know, clean up their trash. And you say, if you clean up your trash, like, I'll give you a piece of candy. That'd be like the positive reward.
Right.
If they do the thing, they get the thing. But then, like, you could also say every single day you get a piece of candy, but if you don't clean up your space, then you don't get that piece of candy. And it's like, which one do you think is going to be more effective? Do you think that they're going to want to strive to get the candy or strive to not lose the candy?
I think not losing the candy would be more effective because you're essentially conditioning them to think that this is normal. You should be getting a piece of candy every day. But if you don't do it, then you will have, like, you're already getting a piece of candy. If you're doing what you're told, you're already getting a piece of candy every day. And if you do something wrong, then it gets taken away. So you don't want to do that. But I feel like if you're getting told that, hey, if you do these things, you'll get a piece of candy. Well, it's a little easier to say, well, I kind of like not doing those things. I don't need the piece of candy because you're already used to not having
Yeah.
it.
It's like it's more far off, more of like a distant idea rather than like your everyday, like you're losing it.
Right. It's kind of like the same idea of you don't know what you're losing until you have
Yeah.
it until it becomes normal.
Well, I think you nailed it on the head when you said that having the candy every day means that this is something that is normal and should always be done, versus rewarding the action on each individual time you get it or whatever. Like having
Yeah.
the candy a constant flow of candy and having it taken away means that cleaning your room or whatever the thing was is something that happens every day, and when you don't do it, it disrupts the normal flow of things. So
Yeah.
there's like a deeper subconscious idea that's being placed in the head because of that.
Yeah.
But
then there's
I
also
don't
the
know.
opposite side with the punishment.
I
Where
think
it's
that's a bad
like-
idea altogether.
Yeah, like I don't necessarily know exactly what the punishment is. Like it's all like very like convoluted. Like you change one thing about one of the scenarios and it becomes the other. But
Whenever I think of something that would a humane punishment when you're teaching an animal, I think of like cats and water sprayers. So it's like if
mom
you're
sprayed our cat the other day.
oh really? She get the sprayer
'Cause-
back out.
Yeah, she was trying to make a bed. I think she was trying to make your bed. And Nami wouldn't get off of the bed. And she went and got my water bottle, my water sprayer, and had to spray her to get off the bed.
So moving to children, should we be spraying children with water?
Yeah,
or-
it's like if
I
they're
think
not
so.
doing
I think
something
that
right, spray them with water, or smack a piece of cheese on them.
the cheese
Did
thing.
this turn into the Diary of a Wimpy Kid?
What? No, it's like the thing where if
you
your
throw the-
baby's
you throw
crying,
the
you smack
cheese.
a slice of cheese on them, and they stop crying because they're so surprised.
They're just shocked.
Yeah. Have you never heard of
Never
that?
seen-
You've never seen
No.
that?
Oh, you gotta look up some videos. It's hilarious. Like the babies will be full on,
They'll be full
like
bawling.
screaming, and you just smack them with a slice of cheese smack on the center of their face, and they just stop because they have no idea what in the heck just smacked them in the head.
Does it need to be cheese?
Yes, it's
Like,
always
is it
cheese.
just the fact that like something smacked them in the head, or is
Well,
it
it's like-
specifically because it's cheese? They're like, what the
It's
heck?
it's like because of
It's
the
like the
craft. It's like
texture.
a craft single. It like sticks to the forehead, so it's like it stays there.
Yeah,
and
it's
they're
like a
just
slice of American cheese where they just
yeah,
bap.
and it's just there, and they're just like so surprised by what just happened, and it's still there. So it's, is whatever. I don't know. I feel like that's a
That's
bad idea
interesting.
for training your children. That's not going to work very well in the long run.
I feel like that's kind of along the same lines of like scaring cats with cucumbers.
What?
Like just
That's
really
just a
random,
prank.
like, well, yeah, but like just really random, like surprising them with a random item of food. Like,
Oh, yeah, I suppose so. So, what animals are the best for teaching, do you think? Because like I have some examples written down here. It's like dogs, you see a lot of videos of dogs with the word buttons and they're actually able to conceptualize or they can order certain words. They may not be able to conceptualize what those words mean, but they know that certain things happen when certain things are done in certain orders. So they're smart enough to know that. But
Like
there's
like
also
Bunny the dog. Is that the one you're thinking of?
I don't know any specific examples. I've just seen a lot of videos of people with their dogs
There's a dog named
with
Bunny.
like a
Yeah.
bunch of buttons. Some people only have like 4, and some people have an entire board of buttons
Bunny
that they
has
can
like
communicate
25
with.
buttons that he pushes.
that's
Yeah,
crazy to me.
Yeah.
And so it makes it seem like they can actually talk. But then you also have animals like crows or ravens. I don't know which one it is, but there's been multiple instances of they will trade for items, or like if you do something nice for them, they will do something back. So it's like they have
Yeah.
they can conceptualize the exchange of goods and services.
Services.
I mean,
The little
you know,
businessman.
I mean,
Yeah.
They need a
that's
little
essentially what
tie
they are. Is like you
on their
provide
black
them with
fur.
something, they give you something back. So it's like what, and then you have dolphins and marine life being trained just by whistles or motions or things of this summer. Jake and I went to Cozumel, and there was we went to a place that had trained dolphins and did dolphin shows, and you were actually able to get into the pool with them, and you'd start clapping for them, and the dolphin would know. Okay, you start waving your fins around like you're clapping, or
Yeah. That's so cute.
these dolphins were actually trained where if you sang the melody to the song Tequila,
forgot about this. They
it
started
would
dancing.
actually start
They started
like
dancing.
dancing. Like it would start like pull
That's
itself out of the
actually
water and spin in
hilarious.
circles. So I'm wondering like what animal could you train to do the most, I guess, human-like things? I mean, dogs already
The most
communicate.
tricks.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, like what would be
Monkeys
the
probably.
quote unquote smart? Well, I guess that's true. Monkeys have learned sign language.
I mean, monkeys are like the closest like parallel to actual human brains, aren't they?
Something like that, like 97%
Yeah, Chase is
match
pretty
to
close
DNA.
to Monkey as he is. So
Yeah, I got that
Yeah.
99% match to your average zoo's monkey.
Average zoo.
I don't know.
Not the
not the
Not
smart
the,
ones that
like,
they train to do sign language, but the zoo
premier
ones
monkeys,
that
just
are
your average zoo
depressed.
monkey.
Yeah.
Oh, I thought that's what we were talking about. We're talking about
Yeah,
the
pretty
communicatory
much.
monkeys.
I was calling
that's
you a
not
monkey.
DNA. That's
all
learned
I was
behaviors.
doing.
But it is interesting to wonder: do the monkeys that learn sign language do they actually know? Can they learn what they're saying? Like, can they learn that language, or is it just like dogs where they know certain things happen when they do certain gestures?
I feel like it's probably more along the lines of the dog. Like they learn certain like the ones with the sign language. Like they can learn that certain signs mean that they'll get food. And I think it's like the bell where like you do that hand sign. It's like the bell rings and you're like, okay, like it's food time. Like or like with the buttons, not really the bell. But like I don't know. Cause like I feel like with the dogs, like they don't actually know what they're saying. They're just pressing the buttons and they know that that green button means that they're gonna get fed and that red button means that they want to go on a walk. Like
Right. It's like a complicated it's like a complex system of Pavlov bells. Because they know the bell is a simple system where it's like the bell rings, you go for food. But if they push, but the dogs actually can
Each
form
button is a different bell,
Right.
essentially.
a different bell that has to be pushed in a specific order. Because they know
I think it's yeah.
if they have want to go outside, you can't say outside to go want. And the dog knows that. They know what order to push things in because of how they've been trained to do that.
Yeah, I feel like though a lot of them isn't like full correct grammar. Like I feel like a lot of them are just like want, go outside.
That makes it easier on the dog.
Yeah, instead of like I want to go. Like I feel like that.
Just
But
teach a dog Old
Yeah.
English.
yeah,
Gosh.
I feel like the whole thing with the buttons is much more along the lines of the BF Skinner with the cats in the cages. Did you ever actually explain that experiment?
I think
Rather
so.
than Pavlov's bells, because with the bells it's the like classical conditioning where this thing happens. Like I feel like it's more all on the human's part. Like you ring the bell, you give the food, the dogs know that that's going to happen, they know that they're going to get the food because of the bell, but they don't actually have active participation in that scenario. Whereas with the BF Skinner's cats, it's like they're stuck in this cage and they know that I don't know, is that the one where like they have to pull the lever or whatever it is to get out of the cage? Do you know? Did you look that up?
I do
No, he
not
didn't.
know.
I can tell you that.
There's some experiment. It could be that one, but it might have been like with rats or something. But there was some lever in the cage that they're in.
There was
And
I believe there was an experiment with, I think it was either rats or guinea pigs where they had to push a lever to get
Yeah.
food.
yeah, they push the lever and the cage opens and like they can go get that food. So they have active participation in that, which is more the like the reinforcement rather than the classical conditioning. Like with the operant conditioning, which is what BF Skinner did, like they have active participation in it, which is a lot more of what like modern animals do. Like with the sign language, they're actually learning to do that. Or with the dogs with the buttons, they're actually learning to do that instead of just hearing the bell and knowing that it's going to happen.
The cat did have a lever to get out of the box. That was the condition.
I was so upset when I was learning about that. I was like, you put the cat in the box? You lock the cat in the box?
It's better than Schrodinger's cat.
That's not the worst thing that's ever happened in the name of psychology.
Schrodinger's cat is dead and alive at the same time. So we talked about aphantasia, but there's also a thing called aphasia or aphasia. You want to
Not really sure the
explain
pronunciation.
the difference?
Yeah. So, like we were talking about with my thing, aphantasia is the inability to see pictures in your head, but aphasia, or however the heck you say it, is a speech condition. So it typically occurs whenever you have brain damage, and there's two different kinds. There's, I think it's Werndike. Did you look that up?
It's Werndike and Broca's.
Broca. Yeah. So Werndike is, I don't know the specific region of the brain, but if you have brain damage to that specific part, the Werndike area, then you can, like, you stop being able to comprehend speech. Like somebody can be talking to you and it can be a language that you're completely fluent in, but like you just can't really like understand what they're saying. Like you don't process, you don't comprehend the words that they're saying. But then the other kind is Broca's aphasia. And Broca's aphasia is, it's like the front lobe of your brain. And if you have damage there, you can comprehend the words, but you can't make speech. So like you can talk, like you're not mute, like your vocal cords can make it, but like you won't be able to verbalize like the words in the language that you're fluent in. You just won't be able to actually speak it.
Hey, Chase,
But-
why can't you talk? Bro, cuz I got aphasia.
Is that what you've been giggling
Yes,
about over
I was
there?
sitting on that one for a long time.
You really wanted to get
I
that
did.
in
I had
before
to-
we moved too
yes,
far.
I had to get it in.
Yeah, I agree. I think every single time I'm like stumbling over my words, I'm just gonna start blaming it on that.
Bro, cuz aphasia. Bro, cuz got aphasia.
Broca's aphasia.
Yeah.
Nobody
But
will know it's
the only
because you're
reason that I
actually
wanted to bring
describing
that up-
something.
What?
Nothing.
Oh, okay. Literally, the only reason that I wanted to bring that up is because I saw this video a long time ago that was talking about, you know, the song Hey Soul Sister? Like, hey, soul sister. Well, there's this lyric at the beginning of it that's like, your lipstick stain on the front lobe of my left side brain. And it kind of makes no sense. Like, originally, you're not kissing somebody's brain. That's kind of weird. Like, if you're able to kiss someone's brain, they're dead. But
Or in the middle of
like,
brain
obviously-
surgery.
yeah. And I feel like the middle of brain surgery is not really the correct time to be kissing someone's brain.
Going
I mean,
s-
you never know what
smooching.
those you never know what those surgeons are up to while they have your brain open.
I
Like,
don't know. Some people are very much awake during brain surgery.
but they're not looking at their brain.
I would
so like
hate
you,
that.
Can you feel your brain?
No, you can't.
If somebody poked it,
No, you
does
can't.
it have nerves?
That's a fact. It's an actual fact. You can't actually
No.
feel your brain.
Because your brain just receives the nerve receptors. It doesn't actually have its own.
Huh. Learn something every day.
But
Anyways, aphasia.
the lyric is that your lipstick stain on the front lobe of your left side brain, or whatever it is. But the interesting thing is that the whole Broca's area that we were talking about is on the frontal lobe of the left side of your brain. So basically, in a very interesting roundabout way, since Broca's damage to that area makes you unable to talk, unable to speak, it's saying like your kisses leave me speechless.
That is the most complicated
You're
way
reading
to
too deep
say
into
that,
that.
I've ever heard.
That's the most English
But isn't it
teacher
so
thing I've
cool?
ever heard.
Yeah, the most English teacher metaphorical.
That's on like
Kind
this.
of.
That's like the water is blue level of English teacher stuff we've had to
Mine's
sit
the
through.
That's
Blue.
awful.
Chase knows what I'm talking about. That's a little inside joke between our 7th grade experience with English.
Oh,
What book was that over? The
It was-
Outsider.
It was The Outsiders.
The
yeah.
Outsiders. Is that what it was called?
Yes, The Outsiders.
It's like, why is the water blue?
my
To symbolize her depression, and her white dress symbolizes her purity. It was
the banging of head, like you're banging your head on your mic. That's so funny.
I
It's
just
not
cannot
fun.
handle it. I can't handle it.
No.
Why is the water
That was
blue?
me in my 6th grade class.
Like she asked us, like, why is the water blue? It's like because the water is blue. It doesn't have to mean anything, but apparently everything had to mean something. Chase argued with her for a long time on that one. I remember that.
did I?
Yeah, you argued for a while.
Probably because I was sick of it. Because
Yeah.
that means that is not what the author meant.
There was one meme that's like, English teacher, the blue curtains symbolize her depression and her sadness and her life and how she was blocked from the outside world, and then it's like the author reading that, no, I just picked a random color and I liked blue.
Pretty much.
That's definitely how it went down.
That reminds me, though, there's a thing called split brain surgery where, if I understand this correctly, they literally separate the two halves of the brain. And normally this happens because people are having epileptic seizures, but they literally separate the brain into two floating halves. And it's just to make sure that seizures that start on one side of the brain don't actually travel to the other. But in most cases, they're still able to retain all function.
Yeah. So you have two sides of your brain, and typically whenever somebody thinks of like the structure of a brain, they think that like the two sides are completely connected. But it's really not. There's actually only one section of the brain in the middle, like in the back kind of, that's connected. Like the two halves of your brain are not fully, there's like one channel that information passes through. And so instead of like literally cutting your entire brain apart, they're just severing that one like space of connection. But it's really interesting because they like, each side of your brain, like people are always like, oh, like if you're right, like the right side of your brain, if you're right-brained, like you're creative or you're artistic or whatever. But if you're left side brain, like you're logical, you're a critical thinker. But each side of the brain just has like the different, like there's different areas on them, but like for things like your hearing or things like your sight, your visual like processing from your left eye occurs in your right side of your brain. And the visual processing, like what comes into your right eye, is processed in the left side of your brain. So it was really interesting with the split brain surgery is since they severed that connection, the information couldn't pass back and forth between the two eyes. So they were seeing everything individually, like in one of their eyes. And so like, I don't remember exactly what the situation was, but like if you covered up like your left eye and tried to show something like just to your right eye, like you wouldn't be able to see it or something because of the way like it passed through. I don't remember exactly what it is. I have a little chart somewhere in my huge AP Psych binder that I'm attempting to find, but
So there is that common thing of like, oh, I'm left-brained or left-brain dominant.
yeah.
Why does that happen? Because I know the whole thing with your brain is like, the way that thoughts work is there's electrical signals that travel across neurons, and the wider or stronger that the neuron path is, the better at doing that skill or remembering that memory or whatever it is that you're doing, thinking, is stronger. So why is it that people are naturally inclined one way or the other? Is that a stupid question?
A little bit. The elements of it are kind of stupid, but I can see what you're getting at. Here's something I want you to prove or disprove to us right now as our expert on the brain, Marissa.
Oh goodness gracious.
I might be wrong on this, but I don't think when you say left brain or right brain, I think it's a myth that it's actually physically left or right side of your brain. Like, I don't think it's real that the processing and stuff occurs physically on one side or the other.
I think it is true, isn't it?
I think it's just a saying that represents like left-brained means that you're artsy or whatever, and right brain means that you're mathy or whatever. But the types of thinking are real, but the actual physical, like left side and right side of the brain, is still a myth.
Before we get our expert, the answer to the question from our expert, I would like to submit my guess as I understand it. The way I understand it is that it is true when people say left brain, right brain in reference to specific tasks, because the parts of the brain that perform said tasks are located in left brain or right brain, like processing information in a logistical way or the intuition or creativity or imagination actually happens in a portion of the brain on the right side.
My guess is that they actually don't happen in specific locations in the brain. It's just an old saying. I think it stems from just a misunderstanding about how the brain works. So we thought one time it was left and right, but it's actually not really located on one half or the other. It's just throughout the brain. But it's still a good way to describe and communicate the different styles of thinking. So that's my guess, is that it's not actually located on the left or the right. All right, expert. What do we got?
Okay.
Who's the winner?
So I would probably say Chase is more leaning towards
Yes.
like the correct.
Obviously,
So-
I'm not an expert on this, so I have absolutely
Yeah.
no idea how this actually works.
Me either. I'm like scrounging together for like the scraps of what I remember
You're the
from my
expert.
psych class. Okay, so I found I found my little chart that I was discussing earlier, and basically each like thing happens on its own side of the brain. Like you comprehend speech on one side of the brain, and you comprehend like your vision and like your actually it's both eyes information goes to one side of the brain. And so like your speech and stuff is on the like I think it's your right side of the brain, left, I don't really know. But your like optical stuff is on the other. So I'm pretty sure that like your left side of the brain does have more like logical, mathematical type things, and the right side of your brain has like more creative type things. But I think it's a myth that one side is like more dominant than the other.
Oh, yeah.
I'm pretty sure. Like, I'm pretty sure like people are like, I'm left brained or I'm right brained. Like, I'm pretty sure there's not any such thing as actually having more function, more like one side of your brain isn't higher processing than the other one, causing you to think more logically than other people or whatever. Like, I'm pretty sure that they're in their own areas, but they just the way like
It's probably
so
just
again the
that
whole
the
like
neural
nature versus nurture
pathways.
thing.
Yeah, it's probably just that the
Yeah.
neural pathways of one are stronger than the other
Yeah.
based on what you've
Neural
experienced.
pathways.
Yeah. What you practice more, pretty much.
Mayfieldclinic.com, brain and spine.
The source of all our information.
Yeah, this is from the
course.
internet. Says that
Right.
in general, the left hemisphere controls speech, comprehension, arithmetic, and writing, what we assume to be the analytical, logical side of the brain. And the right hemisphere controls creativity, spatial ability, artistic, and musical skills.
Yeah.
Also, that the left hemisphere is dominant in hand use and language in about 92% of people, which is interesting.
So I wonder if the right side of my brain is just messed up and I can't see the pictures or hear the music.
I wonder if aphantasia is like, it's almost like a dimple situation where it's literally just a kind of like malformed portion of your brain.
It's likely. There's not any like actual research that explains it. Like it's a fairly new concept altogether, but it's very likely because they've done research on aphasia, like the speech thing, and that's
It's a little more
like
pressing of
specific damage.
an issue.
Yeah. That's like specific damage to certain areas of the brain. So it would make sense that something like mine where it's like you're unable to see the pictures. I mean, it's all in your actual head, but it makes sense that it would be like a similar situation.
We should
But-
just crack your head open and see what's missing,
Oh.
you know?
Yeah,
I
do some
just
research.
don't actually think that that's the best idea there.
Well,
No?
we could crack up on my brain as well and see like where the
I'll
difference is.
I'll take
you
the
know?
two and I'll compare
Yeah.
them. Knock you both
Yeah.
out, and
Like
we'll see.
what part are you missing that I have, and maybe that's the conceptual part or whatever.
Yeah.
That's a good
think
idea. We
that'll
should
work.
do that.
No, but the really actually interesting thing about the whole, like, once again, running back to the aphantasia thing is I still dream. Like, not very much, or like everybody says that you dream every night, but like I don't remember them very often. But like I do dream. Like, I guess I see the pictures in my head when I'm asleep. So I'm like, is it a different part of your brain?
But
That
do you
does
do you remember the dreams?
Imagination? Not very many, but I
But
remember
do you,
some.
You remember some of them. So what happens when you are remembering
Do
some
you
of them?
only remember what happens in them
Yeah.
in like word
Yeah.
form?
You can't.
I don't like again whenever I'm awake, I don't see the pictures of what happened in the dream. I just know a very loose plot line, except I mean obviously
remember
you
the-
forget that
yeah.
pretty quickly, but
You remember the script of what happened, but not the
Yeah.
pictures of what happened.
yeah. So I'm not really sure if there's just like a different part of your brain that functions like the sleep pictures versus awake pictures. Like I don't daydream.
Yeah.
but
Of
I
course,
night
because you can't
so
see pictures in your head.
yeah.
So
Yeah. I mean, I can think
here's
of the
a
plot of a daydream. I just don't. I just
yeah. So here's one
yeah.
more layer to this that I want to explore that me and Chase have discussed. I want to see what you have in this. And we might have
Okay.
discussed this before, but like we've talked about seeing things, we've talked about hearing things. What about the other senses? So like here's an example that I've been using. Can you imagine what it would taste like if you drop some salt on your tongue? Can you like conjure
Can
that
you?
up? Yes, I can. This is
I'm
the
sorry.
craziest part.
What?
So, like, imagine what I do basically is like imagine you take some salt like in your fingers and you like sprinkle it on your tongue. I can kind of imagine what that would taste like on my tongue. I can like imagine what the salt would taste like. Can you not do that?
Hello?
You can't do that. I don't think Chase can
No.
either, right?
Wait, Chase, can you do that?
Only to the same extent that I can remember things.
It's oily
This
salt.
the same things with everything. It's like a 3. I will say I said this when we were talking about it. It's the worst with, what did I say? Feel,
With
like
touch.
phantom touch. It's
Yep.
the next worst with smells, then taste, then sight, then sound.
And sound. Yeah. So
Or
sound is the
sound and
strongest.
sight. Sound and sight are
Or
one and the
similar.
same, but sound is
What do you mean
probably a
by
little bit
worst?
stronger. Like I
Like
have the
you
hardest time
don't.
recreating it.
Okay.
So like smells, I really, it's barely if I
Yeah,
can,
no.
like I can remember the feeling I get when I smell chocolate chip cookies, but I could not recreate what they smell like in my head.
See, I can recreate it a little bit. Like my mom makes chocolate chip cookies and they're really good. And Chase
Like
loves
you
them
could
too.
smell it?
A little bit. It's not as strong. Like I would say that's probably my weakest one, but I can call back on the memory of smelling them. Like when I walk into the house and she's made them or something, you smell them. I can kind of call back on that memory and recreate it a tiny bit, just a little bit though, inside my mind's nose, in quotes.
That is crazy.
Like, can you not think of like take like a lemon slice and like squeeze it on your tongue and think of what lemon juice tastes like? Like it's a
Okay,
very
so
strong
my thing
flavor.
with taste, specifically with sour things, is sometimes like if I eat something sour, like I don't know, if I'm having like some pickles or like the pickle juice is like really sour or like I don't know, something else that's sour, like I don't even know how to describe. Like there's a specific sensation, like not painful, but like your mouth does this specific thing whenever you eat
Oh
something
yeah.
really sour, like randomly.
Is it like a saliva thing where
I
like your mouth like salivates and like clenches and all
not
that stuff?
it
It
kind
just
of
kind of
like
like seizes up.
yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah,
I
yeah.
know what you're saying. Yeah.
I won't like if I'm imagining like eating some lemon juice or something, I'm not going to be able to like phantom taste that. Like there's no way. But I might have that same sensation if I'm thinking about like sour food.
You'll get the reaction to it a
Yeah.
little bit.
Not
Okay.
every time,
Yeah.
but like sometimes that happens.
Every now and
But
then.
it's never like an actual physical like I'm tasting or I'm smelling whatever like that. No, that does not happen.
And then there's one more that I think might be the weirdest one that I can do. Chase
Please
might
don't tell
agree.
me
I
you
don't
can
know.
feel like the phantom touch.
Yeah, I can.
Oh,
So what I can do is if I think about it hard enough, and it grows after more time of doing it, but I can imagine on my fingertips specifically, like the tips of my fingers, I can imagine and get a bit of like a phantom touch of like touching something, whatever it is, just like a surface or something. But I can kind of like hold them out and focus on the fingertips. And I can imagine something pressing against my fingertips, like I were just like taking my hand and placing it on a table. I can imagine it in my fingertips. And I can, if the more I think about it, the more it grows, and I get the sensation of phantom touch, basically.
that's so strange. I mean, like,
Yeah.
I can, I mean, imagine my own way, obviously not picturing it, but I've gotten so used to in all my years of people saying picturing things that I say that even if I don't actually picture it. But like I can
Yeah.
imagine like placing my hand on something, but I don't actually like feel it. Like my like whatever nerve receptors or whatever
Yeah.
are there, like they don't actually send messages to the brain saying I'm touching something. Like
Here's
not at
one.
all.
Yeah, here's one I just thought of, like just a little experiment, I guess. Like think about what the edge of a paper feels like just any kind of paper when you're running your fingers along the edge carefully to not get a paper cut.
Like
But
the
like,
paper cut
yeah, but like,
edge.
yeah, can you imagine what it feels like to have the edge of paper specifically on your fingertips? Because I can imagine what that feels like and feel it a tiny bit on my fingers.
I mean, like, I know that it would be kind of like I can probably attempt to describe it, but I wouldn't feel it.
You wouldn't feel it. Yeah.
Yeah, and that's the same thing with every single one of these.
With all of them.
Like,
That's how it
I
is.
can describe the smell of chocolate chip cookies. I can describe like what the violin sounds like. I can describe a certain memory that I had from vacation a couple years ago. I just can't do it in my head. So
And-
like I could
yeah.
I can't actually feel that. I can't actually see the vacation. I can't actually hear the violin, but
Yeah.
I would be able to describe what those were, felt like, or sounded like to someone else.
It's just so different to how I experience everything, you know?
That's great. You can taste things?
Yes. That's,
Like, just-
I feel like that's normal, but
I
apparently
feel
it's
like
not.
that's not normal. I feel like I'm going to have to go survey like every single person that I've ever known and
Like,
see if they
it's-
can do that.
Yeah, it's really easy for very strong tastes, like pure salt on your tongue or pure lemon juice. Like those are very strong and memorable tastes, and I can taste those if I think about them. Because
strange.
because I can remember what it tastes like when I specifically put just pure salt or squeezed lemon juice on my tongue. I can remember that and then just conjure it back up and kind of get a phantom taste to some extent.
But Chase, you can't do that at all, can you?
Mm-mm.
No.
He's got none
That's
of that.
so weird.
And
Learning
like,
all sorts of new things today.
all of these things that I've said, my dad can also do. And most of them my mom can also do. She can't do the 3D spatial thing in her head, but she can do the taste and the smell and the sight and the hearing and all that stuff in her head, just like me. But my sister is a lot like you, where she doesn't hear, doesn't
Really?
see, doesn't, yeah, all of that stuff.
At
Or
all?
most of it, at least. I don't know about all of them, but seeing in her mind's eye and hearing in her mind's ear is the same way with you, as far as I understand. We talked
so
about it recently.
interesting.
It's like she experiences music the same way you do. I think.
Yeah.
Is that what we
I
decided?
kind of wonder,
I think so.
like, you
Yeah.
know how like color blindness is more common in guys?
Yeah.
I wonder if like the whole like sensory
Aphantasia?
not being able to do it all is more
More common
common
in
like
guys?
for girls or for boys, because I think pretty much every single person like that I've actually spoken to that has been a girl.
According to a study done in 2020, aphantasia appears equally common among both men and women. So
Maybe not then.
think
Maybe I
that
just know more
answers
girls.
your question somewhat.
That's what Mr. Google says, but
Yeah.
Of course we trust Mr. Google. He would never
Always.
lead us astray. Like
never.
Well, I think that's all the time we have, but thank you for joining us on this podcast. It's been fun.
Of
Learning
course,
lots of
There's
different and
so
new
much,
things.
so much great discussion about sensory things, and hopefully everyone listening
Yes.
is like, "Oh, I'm this way, or I'm that way, or I'm going to talk to someone about this, or whatever."
Please reach out.
I'll put a Q&A for those of
Yes.
you listening
Yeah.
on Spotify, or if you're on YouTube, feel
Are
free
you like
to put
Marissa,
in the comments.
or you like Jake?
Yeah,
Which one
describe
are you?
how
Yeah.
much of all of this that you've been hearing that you have.
So, I
I'm
think
available
it's really,
to discuss if you're interested.
I think it's all of this is really thought provoking. So I'm really glad we came on and talked about this.
Me too.
Would you like to give them a handle to contact you in case they want to talk to you about what they experience?
Oh, you can DM me on Instagram at Rissa Kangaroo. I have a little blue dress in my profile picture.
There you go. If you want somebody to talk to and compare experiences with, go find her on Instagram and debate to your heart's content.
Yeah.
Or tell her how weird she is because she can't hear sounds in her head. One of the two, you know?
Yeah, I've gotten a lot of that, so that works too.
Yep.
If you did enjoy what you heard, feel free to follow us on Spotify or wherever you're listening from. We try to upload every Sunday. I don't think we have a topic planned for next week already.
Not yet, but I will say we are planning a very large scale episode coming soon.
We have a fun project coming up. I'm excited for.
Sometime in the near future.
excited.
We're just going to hint at it here, but it's going to be pretty awesome.
But thank you so much again for listening, and we'll catch you guys next time. Bye-bye.
See ya.
Bye.
Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen. How are we doing? Oh, wait, hang on. I should probably introduce the guest before I ask how they're doing. Yes, this is how this goes almost every time,
Yep.
actually.
Every time.
It's
This
like,
is so
okay,
funny.
we decide that we're actually going to start, and then it's like, all right, how
Now
are
what
we
do
going
we
to
say?
start this time?
Yeah, how do we start?
I'm getting the insider information.
Yeah. You get to be a part of the process.
Hey guys, welcome back. Today we have the best person ever on the podcast.
Definitely not.
Well, the first thing we're going to talk about is a condition known as aphantasia. For those of you that do not know what this is,
Which is everyone.
excuse you.
Did you know
See,
what
I've always pronounced it
aphantasia is?
aphantasia, but I legitimately have no clue how to pronounce it.
Aphantasia. Actually, yes, I did. I just didn't know it was called that.
That's what I'm saying. We haven't introduced what it is yet, so no one
You
knows
haven't
what.
given me the chance.
Never mind. Do it again, Chase, since you can't handle this. Do it again.
What do you mean? Since I can't handle this, you're the one jutting in.
I jutted in and you were like, wait, hold on. Let's stop everything right now and talk about this. It made complete sense, but let's just redo it again.
To
I
you.
won't. Yeah. It made complete sense.
Uh-huh.
Oh,
Moving
my
on
battery
from
was
that.
low.
You don't have it plugged in?
No.
No wonder you're lagging like crazy.
Oh,
We've only been hearing every other word.
really?
No.
Oh, I was so scared.
I wish. Am I right?
Hey. I'm making your podcast go famous right now.
This is going to be the worst episode by far.
I'll force all my friends to listen to it.
The actual physical, like, left side and right side of the brain is still a myth.
We lost her.
Is she gone?
Yeah. Blooper reel. We just lost Marissa. I think her computer died.
That's probably what happened. Did she not plug it in?
I guess not. I thought she did.
I thought that's
but
what she was doing earlier when she said it got low battery. Little goofy
It's
goober.
literally plugged in. Obviously not.
Not good enough.